again, and everything looks great. Thank you again, everyone, for joining us today. At this time, I would like to introduce Greg Core, the Division Director of Monitoring and State Improvement Planning with the Office of Special Education Programs at the U.S. Department of Education. Greg?
Thank you, Jennifer, and I want to thank everyone for joining us this afternoon. We have a couple interesting topics, and I'm assuming because of the large number of folks that are on this call that you all are interested in hearing about them as well. We'll be starting off with a review of the SPP APR information collection package that has been published in the Federal Register and is currently out for its 60-day comment period. To make that presentation, we have Jennifer Wolfsheimer, Christine Pilgrim, and Angela Tanner-Dean, who've been working hard on our data team for all things SPP APR. Following that, Amy Bay, who was with that MSIP, is now with the Research to Practice Division, is going to preview a fast facts tool, an infographic that she previewed for us several weeks ago, and we thought it was really exciting, and glad that she's willing to share it with you all this afternoon. Before we get started, I know many communities are dealing with the rapidly developing coronavirus situation. We have been getting a number of questions from states and localities over the last couple of days about the impact of that on students with disabilities, as well as young children with disabilities and early intervention programs. I wanted to let you know that within the last hour, the department has released its questions and answers on providing services to children with disabilities during the coronavirus disease outbreak. It is posted on the department's main webpage. If you go to that webpage, you'll see there's a coronavirus link. If you click on that, this link, dealing with children with disabilities, is one of a number that appears there. I believe it's the second one. So I urge you to take a look at that. We have tried to answer questions that have been coming in, as well as others that we anticipate may be coming in. Many of the responses are on issues that surfaced in earlier situations, for instance, with the Ebola situation and the H1N1 virus. If you have additional questions that aren't covered here, I urge you to reach out to your OSEP state lead, and we'll try to add those and respond to those as they come in. So again, please take a look at that. It's on our main Department of Education webpage. I'm going to then turn the presentation over to Angela.
Yes.
Angela Tanner-Dean.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you, Greg. As Greg mentioned, there are two sections to our presentation today. First, we will be talking about the SPP APR. Most of what I'll be sharing today is specific to the information collection, but I wanted to start with one specific clarification related to indicator 14. So next slide, please. Thank you. So this question has come up a few times, most recently at the IDC Institute last week, and we wanted to go ahead and provide some clarification to Part B state directors and data managers. We are aware that the current measurement table, which we will be extending through FFY 2019 for the APR that is due February 1st, 2021, we realize that the measurement table currently reads that states must use option 2 in their reporting for the FFY 2019 APR. We also recognize that the information collection that is currently out for comment, which would start in FFY 20, includes the option of using it includes the ability for states to choose between option 1 and option 2. So we did want to clarify that we are going to continue to permit that option through this measurement table. So for the APR that is due February 1st, 2021, you will still have the option to choose between the two measurements. And we will revise the language before we publish the package next fall or this fall through a technical edit so that it will reflect that flexibility to report using option 1 or option 2. So we wanted to make sure that that was clear to the field, and you will see that change reflected in the package that's typically released in the fall, as well as in the reporting platform. Okay. So with that, I am going to turn it over to Jennifer.
Thank you, Angela. So I'm going to cover the general high-level proposals in the information collection that is currently out for comment. OSEP is proposing a revision to the current SPP APR package, which would be inclusive of FFY 2020 through FFY 2025. And it's currently, the package for both Part B and Part C is currently out for comment until April 20th of 2020. The websites and the docket numbers are in the PowerPoint. The docket number for Part C is up there, as well as the docket number for which you would search for Part B as well, to be able to insert your comments to submit them to the department. The detailed explanation and rationale would be published with the proposed measurement table. Again, this will just cover the high-level proposed changes. So we're doing this now because the current 6-year SPP cycle ended with FFY 2018. States established, as you all know, bridge targets for FFY 19 in this APR that you just submitted in February to address the gap year in the SPP. We did do this before in 2011, so this gap year has been something that we have done previously. One important note to consider about timing is that states will first report using the proposed measurement table with its FFY 2020 SCP APR, which is due February of 2022. That means that states will begin to collect these data from most Part B indicators and all of Part C indicators in September 2020, once the information collection is approved. So the process for putting together the information in the package that is currently out for comment was OSEP began this process to collect information through 18 listening sessions in 2017, right at the beginning of the current administration. As part of the Rethink initiative, everything was on the table. We met with NASD, ICA, and various other stakeholders in the community. We also consulted with TA providers and projects who specialize in different data sets. So the guiding principles for this package were really to focus squarely on infants and toddlers and children and youth with disabilities and their families. We've made a lot of progress since the IDA was first implemented. We've had a lot of conversations that have included children with disabilities throughout education and the data. The needle has moved, but we need to jumpstart to the next phase of improvement. This slide will talk about the cross-cutting for both Part B and Part C changes. Reporting that accurately reflects the demographics of infants, toddlers, and children with and youth with receiving services. This specifically talks about disaggregation by race and ethnicity and specific information on how a state defines representativeness. Again, for both Part B and Part C, you'll see that in the proposed collection. The trend data, this is talking to year-over-year comparisons of some components of certain indicators. And then standard reporting format to reduce burden. Here we're specifically discussing the OSEP and optional streamlined template that promotes the state to provide a concise, cohesive, and easy to understand OSEP. And again, those were crossed between Part B and Part C. Now I want to go into specifics related to Part B. These are just, again, high-level highlights. So indicator 1, what you'll want to look at is the proposed change would require states to report the same data as used for reporting to the department under Section 618 of the IDEA, in which the department uses as part of our annual determinations under 616 of the IDEA. Using the Section 618 exiting data as the data source for this indicator would allow direct focus on the outcomes of students with disabilities who received special education and related services at the time that they exited high school, based on the same standards and criteria for graduation that students without disabilities are required to meet. For indicator 2, the proposed change would require states to report the same data as used for reporting to the department under Section 618 of the IDEA. Indicator 3, for assessments, this is broken out to measure. A would now, as we all know, it's been reserved for quite a period of time. We are now proposing that it would be, the indicator 3A would be participation rates for children with IEPs in grades 4, 8 in high school. The 3B and C would be related to proficiency rates for children with IEPs against grade level and alternative academic achievements. And then we also, the other proposed change for 3 would be looking at the improvement rates for children with IEPs against grade level and alternative academic achievement standards. And the last change will be looking at the gap in proficiency rates for children with IEPs and all students against grade level academic achievements. The one thing I do want to point out is that these data would be pre-populated into the SPP APR reporting tool to reduce burden for the states. Indicator 5 would align with the changes to EdFAC file specifications, which will require states to submit child count and educational environments data for in and or self-size for 5-year-olds in kindergarten under the file specifications. And then indicator 6 is similar, the proposed change would disaggregate the reporting by discrete age by 3, 4, and 5, and add category C to require reporting on preschool children with disabilities who receive special education related services in the home, and allow states to report under this indicator only those 5-year-olds who are enrolled in preschool programs. So next steps. So once the comment period closes on the 20th of April, OSEP will respond to the comments, and then the package will be posted again for an additional 30 days. The final measurement table and package for both Part B and Part C would be published by August of 2020.
So we're going to pause. This is Angela. We're going to pause here for questions before we transition to the presentation on the OSEP Fast Facts.
Angela, the only question that came in was referring, it asked what was meant by cross-cutting.
So the cross-cutting is really changes that we see, proposed changes that we see for both Part B and Part C. It's a very high-level way for us to show you how what changes are similar in both Part B and Part C information package.
Perfect. Thank you very much.
Jennifer, would you like us to pause for a couple more?
That was the only question that came in at this time.
Okay.
So if that's the case, at this time I'm going to turn it over to Amy Bay regarding the OSEP Fast Facts.
Great, thanks. So, and you can go to the next slide, thank you. So the OSEP Fast Facts were released last week. We did a rollout on our blog and through Twitter, and some emails were sent out. So maybe you've had a chance to check it out. But the purpose of the Fast Facts is to share and promote our 618 IDEA data. And there's a lot of reasons for this. We wanted to internally support the state teams in MSIP as they work with the states. But we also wanted to make our data meaningful for the stakeholders, including everybody on this call today. We know that you work really hard to submit the data, and we want to make sure that it's used in a meaningful way. So we pulled together data from the 12 data collections that are authorized under IDEA Section 618 into visual graphic representations with the intent to present it really clearly and quickly. We know that our data files on our website can be overwhelming, and we wanted to provide something that was easy to navigate and easy to understand, quickly glance at and easy to understand. So our data includes that's collected through child count, ed environment, discipline, and exiting. Our first OSEP Fast Fact presents data on students identified with autism, but we have plans to release a number of these in the upcoming months, focusing on different aspects of our data. We know this first one is Part B heavy, but we definitely have some that focus on early childhood in the works. So our first thing I'm going to do is show you our website where you can get, so the links are all on the slide or on the PowerPoint. So this is like our home page for the Fast Facts. This will be where all of the future Fast Facts will be posted. It also has links to where the data is coming from. So it has links to our 618 data files. So Christine, will you open the OSEP? So this is our first one, OSEP Fast Facts Children Identified with Autism. Now if you go up to the right-hand corner of the blue, see the little gray circle, click that. Now there's some functionality here. You can click on the first one, and that'll give you the option to download it into a PDF. I want to caution you that our 508 compliant version is the version that you see online. That's accessible to screen readers. and it's compliant. If you do download a PDF version, that is not 508 compliant, so I caution you against using it without the web version, but I just wanted to show you that function. The second link, the second little gray circle, if you want to share it through social media, that option's there. And then the third option is to present the screen. So if you wanted to present it at a conference or to stakeholders, the option is available. So what's great about this infographic is it's interactive. Christine, I'm going to just click around and show them what it'll do. So the first chart shows the percentage of students with disabilities identified with autism across the, you're going way too fast. Sorry. Stay on the map. And as you can see, this is our most recent data, which was just recently released, I think within the last 2 weeks. So it's as updated as data as we have. And it shows the percentage of students with disabilities identified with autism at 11%, and states report a range of 1 to 15% of students identified with autism. And you can see some states have data suppression or data notes, and if you scroll over some of the states that are in gray, you can see there'll be like in the middle, yeah, you'll see an explanation about missing data or data notes. And you'll see for each of the graphics, there'll be a link in the down there, yep. And that takes you right to the data file. So if you wanted to manipulate the data or really get into looking at your state's data or what was submitted, that's where you would go. Okay, now you can scroll to the next one.
Oh my goodness, Amy, I was just so excited. I wanted to keep going.
Oh, because the trend data is probably one of our most exciting. We've pulled together 10 years of data that we've collected on students identified with autism. And this data is particularly interesting because it shows a big increase of 4.97% of students identified in 8-9, just over 10% of students identified with autism in 18-19. And it's just like you could add a line right through it showing the trend. Okay, keep on going. This is the difference between males and females identified with autism as compared to all students with disabilities. And as you can see, males are more likely to be identified with autism than females when compared to all students with disabilities. The next chart comes from our exiting data, and it shows it shows the students identified with autism exiting as compared to all students with disabilities. And you can see students with autism were less likely to drop out and more likely to receive a certificate than all students with disabilities. But their graduation rate is generally the same. This next chart pulls from our education environment data. And you can see children identified with autism were less likely to be served inside the classroom 80% or more of the day than all disabilities. We have what is called a double donut chart that demonstrates the race and ethnicity. And Black or African American and Hispanic Latino students were less likely to be identified with autism, and Asian students were more likely to be identified with autism when compared to all students with disabilities. And you can look at each of the race and ethnic categories as compared to the all disabilities group. We wanted to use our discipline data, and we wanted to make it in an easy to understand format. Anyone who's been in the weeds in our discipline data it can be overwhelming and a little bit confusing. So what we ended up doing was deciding to go with just a fact about our discipline. So students with autism were less likely to be suspended and expelled than children identified with emotional disturbance or other health impairments, and more likely to be suspended or expelled than students who are deafblind or students with orthopedic impairments. And finally, our last chart shows the percentage of students with disabilities by English language proficiency. And you can see English learners with disabilities are less likely to be identified with autism as compared to non-English learners with disabilities. And like I said, each of these charts is interactive. Christine, will you play around and click on like the ELs at the top? Right there, yep. Or not. And it'll show you the race you can kind of manipulate them. This one's not as good to manipulate because it's only 2 things, but some of the ones that have more are kind of interesting to pull out specific elements of the data, use, think about how it's meaningful in the work that you do in the state. And like I said, we have a whole bunch of fast facts coming out that are going to focus on different aspects of our Part B and Part C data. So we really are excited about this and hope you are too. If you have any ideas or suggestions or questions, there's an email, I think it's on the Fast Facts page, the main page, where you can submit suggestions. And like I said, questions or comments are always welcome. And yep, there it is. Yes, OSEP IDEA data at ed.gov. And the RTP data team monitors that, and we'll get back to you. So we just really wanted to share and are excited about this. So that was my short but sweet. Yeah.
Thank you, Amy. Any questions about the fast facts?
Well, we've definitely had a couple questions on fast facts come in. We did have a couple that came in right after, of course, that I turned it back over to you guys. So a couple I believe are going to go back to Jennifer's presentation. So I'll ask them in the order that they came in, just so that we don't miss any of them. So the first question, and I believe this goes back to Jennifer's presentation, was wondering about the different types of questions that can be asked about the package. Just wondering because in the past, OSEP has not been able to address questions during the comments period.
I'll go ahead and start. Any comments or suggestions about the proposed package have to come through regulations.gov. Questions, comments that come to us would not be considered officially transmitted. This is an OMB process. So, things that are other than actual suggestions, we would be glad to entertain.
Okay, perfect. The next question that came in, it said, regarding indicator 14, has there been any consideration or plans to revise the criteria for competitive integrated employment using existing collections at state agencies?
This is Angela. I think that if there is anyone that would like us to consider that would be very useful information to include in the public comment.
Okay. The next question that came in is related to B4. It says language in the proposed document says a total of 10 or more document lists indicator 4 as total of 10 or more, but currently it reads greater than 10 days. Is this a change?
Can you read it again, Jennifer?
Of course. And I'm reading this, so if the person who submitted this question, if there's something that got mistranslated when you typed it, you can always type it back in. But it says for B4, it says language in the proposed doc says total of 10 or more. The document lists indicator 4 as total of 10 or more, but currently reads greater than 10 days. And that's how the question was sent in.
So I think that because there is a question related to what we intended, that it is not clear to the field. So I would encourage whoever asked that question to make a comment asking OSEP to be clear about what is intended in that language change, and we would address it.
Perfect. Okay, as I'm going through. Okay, the next question was a notice about the fast facts sent out to Part C coordinators?
Jennifer, was that question, sorry, we were having a little bit of a hard time hearing.
Oh, sure.
When would the notification be sent out about the fast facts, or if notification would be sent out?
It says was a notice sent out about the fast facts to Part C coordinators.
No, we sent it out through, like I said, the blog, Twitter, kind of rolled it out at that level. And we are planning on sending everyone a notice. It was supposed to go out this week, so hopefully we have one more day to get it out. And then I know that it's going to be in some of the upcoming, like Lori's, her newsletter. So it'll be coming out, hopefully you'll hear about it in a variety of ways coming out. But yes, we plan to send an email to the Part C and Part B directors and coordinators for sure. But it hasn't gone out yet, so you didn't miss it.
Okay, perfect. The next question that came in, it says, if OSEP identified accuracy concerns with the counts submitted for children with disabilities aged 3 to 5 and 6 to 21 due to the submission not passing edit checks, how can we address to be able to use these awesome infographics?
So data that was suppressed is not included in our infographics or publicly released files. So hopefully this will encourage states to submit high quality data that makes it into the infographics, but at this point we're not including data that doesn't pass our edit check.
Excellent. Okay, the next question. A lot of states have been investing in state longitudinal data systems and cross-agency data sharing for reporting and program evaluation purposes, but the definitions for option 2 are and it's misspelled. It says, and it can't be collected accurately using surveys with existing data collection sources at the state agencies. It'd be helpful for definitions to be crafted with the available data in mind, and the practical methodology for collection of new data.
This is Angela again. We definitely appreciate that feedback. I think that is excellent feedback to include through public comment. The more detailed, that was very detailed and specific input, the more detailed your comments are, the more thoroughly we are able to consider the information. So I would really encourage whoever wrote that to make a comment.
Perfect. Okay, the next question is about your double donut. It says, if we have comparable data in Part C using ICD codes, could we get a description of how each chart was done?
So, like I said, all the data is directly sourced from the files that each of the graphs link to. So say it's something about child count, you'll be able to access that file directly from the website, from our 618 data page, and all the data will be there that we use to create all of it's publicly available, all of it's on our website. If you have a question about how we specifically calculated something, please reach out to that that email address that's on the EdTech data page, and we can walk you through how some of the calculations were done if they don't make sense to you. But like I said, that's all based on the publicly released 618 data files on our website.
Excellent. And the last question that came in is the docket number provided in the PowerPoint also for locating the Part C SSP and APR for comment?
So the Part C one is ends in 28, and the Part B one in 30. I believe the PowerPoint that Jennifer Reed is going to distribute will have both docket numbers on there, as well as the emails that Greg sent out notifying the field that the comment period was open have the specific docket numbers in there as well.
Perfect. We did have another question come in. It says, after the final package comes out, will OSEP or IDC provide instructions on how to set fiscal year 2020 baselines for the sub-indicators that are added to the package? For example, 6C, 3E, and 3F.
Yes.
Sorry, this is Christine. yes, after the package has been finalized and made public and we've gone through the comment period, et cetera, we obviously would be planning to support states as they have to set new targets and think about how they're reporting data to us. And of course, we always have IDC ready and poised to help states with any data-related needs. So, yes. And I would want to reinforce one thing that Angela mentioned when she was encouraging our participants to send their comments in through the Federal Register. It really isn't considered a comment unless it goes through that process. So like sort of sharing feedback with us through this call or through your OSEP state lead through email would not count as you commenting formally on the package. So it really needs to go through that process.
Will the FFY 2020 baseline be based on the FFY 2019 data?
Sorry, Jennifer, just give us a moment. The question was brief in nature, and we just want to make sure that when we respond, that we're responding as well as we can.
Not a problem. And I will let participants know that we did have several comments that came in. I will be forward anything that doesn't get addressed in this call will be sent to OSEP afterwards, where they can reply to individuals who sent in comments.
Jennifer, can you add that last question to the ones you're going to send us for follow-up? We think that we want to take a moment to respond.
Sure.
Carefully.
Yeah, and so participants know when your comments are submitted, I will have your name and email, so that will be provided to OSEP as well, so they will be able to respond to you individually.
Jennifer, when I would say for the individual that asked the question about if the reporting in FFY 20, if the baseline would be based on 1920, if there are specific indicators that they're referring to, because some indicators have lag data. So we just want to be clear if they can give you some more information in their question and then you pass it on to us, that would be wonderful.
Perfect. And additional information was provided, so I can provide that. And that was the last question that we have that's come in at this time.
Jennifer, unless there are other questions, are you seeing any?
Nope, not at this time. I think.
Okay, great. I want to thank our panelists today, Angela, Christine, Jennifer, and Amy, for their presentations. I want to thank all of you for joining us and for your questions. Again, as I mentioned at the beginning of the call, the department has released a Q&A on the coronavirus as it impacts children with disabilities. So I urge you to take a look at that. So thanks for joining us. Our next TA call will be Thursday, April 9th. Have a good day.
Thank you, everyone. Have a wonderful afternoon.